Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, world. Welcome once again to Tuesday Talk with Key West Lou. I am your host, Louis Patrone. Well, the weeks are getting more exciting. They're also getting more dangerous. I am becoming quite fearful. We have the Turkey shooting down a Russian plane. We have Russia challenging everyone at every corner of the world, especially in the Middle East. It's just disconcerting. It's worrisome. My concern is this. Are we going to end up in a war? It takes something like a Turkey-Russian thing with the plane being shot down. Another thing like that could very well start a war between those two countries, and then everybody's involved. This reminds me so much of the late 1930s when everyone was pacifying Hitler, but there were strange things and bad things happening all over the world. There was a concern for war, trying to avoid war, and all of a sudden there was war. So, dangerous times we live in. I want to address tonight first the refugee problem out of Syria. I have avoided it thus far. I have thought much about it, and my thoughts don't run along the lines of most people. But let me speak to it, and let's see if I can open your eyes, perhaps, because I believe I will be sharing with you things you were not aware of. By the way, what I'm sharing with you tonight are some thoughts, comments, excerpts from my column that I wrote this week for Conk Life. It hits the newsstands tomorrow, and I titled it, Muslim Refugees No. You see, Syria has opened the door to a serious discussion of Muslim immigration, whether the United States should accept any of the Muslims who have escaped Syria. Those opposed are fearful of terrorists being able to easily sneak into the United States disguised as immigrants, a valid concern, however, not the real problem. Republicans and some Democrats are using the terrorist argument to adopt more stringent vetting laws. Such persons fail to realize that the vetting process already in place works well. A vetting process that takes 1.5 to 2 years. As regards the thousands of immigrants who have already been granted entry in recent years, only 3 turned out to be terrorists. Typical of political leaders the past quarter century, the blind cannot see. They have failed and continue to fail to see what would occur if a large number of Muslim immigrants were permitted entry. I do not believe that Congress pays close attention to what is going on in the world. Congress fails to understand or take the time to understand the nitty-gritty of most issues. Xenophobia is the intense or irrational dislike or fear of people from other countries. Islamophobia is the dislike, fear of Muslims. I am guilty of both phobias, except my xenophobia is not irrational. The ultimate goal of Islam is world domination. You must realize that. The ultimate goal of Islam is world domination. A step at a time. Immigrate to countries. Join each other in specific neighborhoods. Keep local authority out. Rule yourselves. Apply Sharia law. The ultimate goal over a long period of time being to take control of host countries, one by one. Conversion, a part of the problem. Convert Christians to Islam. If they refuse, kill them. The same as ISIS is doing to Christians in the Middle East. Jews, kill outright. They should not be provided the conversion option. Muslims who settle in another country want their Muslim culture and customs adopted. They do not want to assimilate. The Quran prohibits it. Conversion the key and not assimilation. Keep in mind again, the goal is world domination. Muslim immigrants want to live as they have lived in their previous homeland as regards the Quran. Things like child marriage, lashings, stonings, honor killings of women, anti-Semitism. special rights for Muslim workers, demand that Sharia law be substituted for existing civil law, and more. Muslim experiences in European countries provide clear, definitive proof of what I have just said. Britain already has in excess of 85 Sharia courts. Britain gave in to Muslim demands in this regard. Britain also has no-go zones across the country, areas too dangerous for non-Muslims to enter. These no-go zones are microstates in effect, ruled under Sharia law, the Muslims having rejected Britain's legal system. There is a campaign to turn 12 British cities into independent Islamic states. The cities include Birmingham, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, and London. There are Tower Hamlets in East London. They are referred to by Muslims as Tower Hamlets Taliban. The Muslims control the hamlets. They issue death threats to unveiled women and attack gays. Leaflets are distributed to everyone trying to enter, and the leaflets say, and I quote, "You are in a Sharia-controlled zone, Islamic rules enforced." John Reed, Britain's Home Secretary, a big mucky-muck, Britain's Home Secretary, visited East London. He was challenged by a leading Islamist, and I quote, "How dare you come to a Muslim area?" Britain made a grave error when Muslims started showing up in numbers. They acceded to what was demanded. They protected what they viewed as the rights of Islamists. Britain tried to be the good guy, the fair one, to Britain's detriment. Now it is thought to be too late to do anything about the problem. France is in the news big time these days. No wonder. France has the largest Muslim population in Europe, 6.5 million Muslims. The French Muslim population has reached the point where it wants a parallel Muslim society with the French, a parallel society ruled by Sharia law. The Muslims have created neighborhoods and zones that they control, to the exclusion of those other faiths and the French government. They are called sensitive urban zones, ZUS, Z-U-S for short. There are, you're not going to believe this, 751 such zones in France. Disturbances, a nightly thing. Burning of cars, blocked streets and sidewalks for Friday prayers, mosques broadcasting sermons and chants via street loudspeakers and so forth. The activities are downplayed in the French media. The reason being the press does not want to be accused of racism or Islamophobia. Local authorities do nothing. They do not want to confront what is actually an occupation of their cities. Tanks and soldiers would be required if such were recognized. The Dutch government reports 40 no-go zones exist in the Netherlands. 20% of the population is Muslim. Police send 2 patrol cars on calls, each to protect the other. Hostile Muslims throw rocks at the police cars. The police do nothing. They are so ordered. During the Islamic month of Ramadan, the police were ordered by their superiors not to drink coffee or eat in public places for fear of offending the Muslims. Sweden is considered by the Muslims as the best Islamic state. Would you believe it? The best Islamic state. The city of Malmö has a 25% Muslim population. Whole patches of the city are no-go zones in Malmö and Gothenburg. Muslim teenagers burn cars, attack emergency services, throw stones at patrolling officers, and temporarily blind police officers with green lasers. Germany is no different. The same problems as Britain, France, the Netherlands, and Sweden. Such being the case, I cannot understand why Angela Merkel wants to accept 1 million more Muslim refugees. It does not make sense to me. Germany is confronted with zone-type neighborhoods. Intimidation and violence are commonplace. Muslims push all infidels whose secular values are different from theirs out. okay? If you're not a Muslim, you're out. You're an infidel. The Muslims, in many instances, refuse public services, such as police, firefighters, and ambulances. If police, firefighters, and ambulances try to enter these no-zone neighborhoods, they are met with stones, bottles, and bullets, okay? Stones, bottles, and bullets. The result, and this is very important what I'm going to share with you now, the result is the German zones are war zones. The government has retreated. Germany's chief police commissioner, Bernhard Witthaut, said, and I quote, "The power of the state is completely out. Power of the state is completely out of the picture." This is with regard to the hard-ass Germans. Italy is not as bad as the previous countries mentioned. The process is underway, however. The Muslims have commandeered Rome's Piazza Venezia for public prayers. In Bologna, Islamists repeatedly threatened to bomb the San Petronio Cathedral. No relationship, but they want to bomb the San Petronio Cathedral. The cathedral contains a fresco which depicts the Prophet Muhammad being tormented in hell. The proof of the pudding is what has been represented by me, what I've told you about thus far. Muslim immigrants want to create parallel societies. They want to remain segregated from other people in the host nation. Integration is not an option for them. Islamic scholar Robert Spencer said it best. He believes what Islamic supremacists want is not merely a place at the table, equal rights under the laws previous minority groups have sought in civil rights movements. They want their own table, utterly distinct from the man-made laws of infidels. We are the infidels. The United States is beset with enough of its own internal problems. There is no need to force another on top of it all by accepting Muslim immigrants. They do not want our way of life. Previous immigrants came and learned to be Americans. They wanted to be Americans. The Italians, Irish, Poles, Germans, and more recently the Bosnians. My position is a simple one. If you do not like us or want to be like us, do not come here. Stay wherever you are or somewhere else in the world. We betray ourselves and our heritage if we take any number of them in. I can see the uproar my words will cause with some. Anti-religious the cry, lacking in charity, un-American. I do not buy it. Primary importance is to preserve our way of life for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren. I want to make two closing observations. The first is the Middle East countries of affluence, such as Saudi Arabia, have refused to take any of the Syrian immigrants in. The immigrants are their people. They're all Muslims. Such says something. If Saudi Arabia and the other affluent Middle East countries don't want these immigrants, something's amiss. And why should we take what they don't want, their own people don't want? The other is, and you got to agree with this one, the American media has failed to inform us of much that I have spoken about thus far. Why? Is this another example of the press's failure to keep us advised? I believe it is. It's another example of the press's failure to keep us advised. It is referred to in my words as selective news reporting. One further comment regarding this issue. Think for a moment, please. Can you cite for me, can you tell me, one time in history in which large numbers of Muslims have willingly assimilated into a non-Muslim culture? A time in history when a large number of Muslims have willingly assimilated into a non-Muslim culture. Just give me one example. Guess what? You can't. You can't think of one because one does not exist. There aren't any. They have never assimilated wherever they went. Enough of the Muslims for tonight. I'm going to go to Donald Trump for a little bit here. He bothers me. First, I thought he was a nut and a bully. Then I started saying, well, maybe the guy's got something going for him. And I was impressed, and I still am impressed, a large number of American people who seem to enjoy him and respect him. They want to vote for him. And now I'm coming around again and thinking the guy's a nut. Trump said on Sunday that he would bring back waterboarding. You see him all over television the last 48 hours saying that. You bet I'd bring back waterboarding. And even stronger interrogation methods. I don't know. Let me tell you something. And he says, they do bad things to us. We should do bad things to them. And he refers to the American journalist James Foley, who was beheaded. Well, hell, if our standard is going to be an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and what they do to us, we do to them, then hell, let's not waterboard them. Let's cut their heads off like ISIS is doing, okay? I don't believe we should waterboard. Simple, I'll tell you. We should not torture people. We are, I believe this, I'm sorry. There's got to be other people who believe as I do. We're the shining city on the hill. We do no wrong. We set the standard for the rest of the world. We're coming down into the gutter with these people. I honestly believe we can beat ISIS. We can beat this Muslim threat. If we want to go to war with them, we don't want to go to war with them. It seems this, periodic bombing. And let me tell you something. Do you know the United States has already made over 6,000 bombings? They've gone out on 6,000 plus sorties to bomb Syria. What good has it done? You're going to have to put boots on the ground eventually, my friends. We have to go to war to beat an enemy, and you beat them on the ground. No society has ever been bombed into submission. They didn't bomb London into submission in World War II. I can't think of any society that's been bombed. We didn't bomb the North Koreans into submission. All right? And we didn't bomb the Vietnamese into submission. It doesn't work. The other thing about Trump is he manipulates. He's got to manipulate people. Remember, this is the man, if he is president, who's going to have his finger on the button, and that if he presses it, we have a nuclear war. And this is the power you are giving this man. Now, the media and Trump are not getting along. This has been obvious. Next Monday, there is going to be a meeting of the executives of the 5 major TV news networks. They're going to meet with Trump people. That's ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and Fox. The goal of the meeting is to reach common agreement. This meeting, by the way, is being called by the networks, to reach common agreement with regard to the Trump campaign. And I think they're going to kiss ass, the networks. They're sort of saying to Trump, give us a break, okay? Give us a break. And there's no question, Trump has the upper hand. He has the upper hand over the media who are supposed to, test these candidates, ask them questions, even if they're foolish, press them, see how they handle these things. Now, Trump's problem is he's overly obstructive, he's overly hostile, and that's the way he campaigns. Do you know what Trump's done with regard to the press? And I'm not a lover of the press, by the way, because I think they're a pain in the ass sometimes. But what he has done, he now has a press pen. Press pen, P-E-N. Sounds like he's keeping pigs. And this press pen is wherever he is speaking. And the journalists must stay within the press pen. They cannot leave the press pen. If they do, they will be blacklisted and never permitted to appear again at a Trump event. Isn't that wild? Okay. And they've already barred certain reporters that they didn't like from Trump events. Now, this is strong-arming. I don't care how you call it. This is strong-arming. Is this the type of leadership we want? Last year I wrote something. I've been writing this. I've been writing it for a couple of years. I said it on my TV show. I've said it here, and it's basically this. You can only defecate on a people so long. You can only defecate on a people so long. Then they're going to react. What am I talking about? this is the 1%, 99% society we have in this country. And the 99% are being shit on over and over the last 10 years, 15 years. Congress isn't helping them. The rich are getting richer. It's a bad state of affairs in this country. And the people have been taking it, but at some point they're going to say, no more. And they're going to look for a leader who's going to do something for them, they believe. And I believe that the time is coming or has come, and that leader is Donald Trump, because the government has failed them, so they want somebody in there who's going to really speak for them. I fear Donald Trump. I think he's dangerous, and I'll tell you exactly who he reminds me of. Hitler. Hitler came to power because the German people were sick and tired of being economically depressed. He brought back jobs, gave them incomes, gave them dignity, made them comfortable, and look what happened. He was a nut, but they went for him, and he gave them the biggest war they ever had. And I think right now our society is about 1933 in Germany when Hitler came to power, and Trump is, in a sense, he's not Hitler, but he's acting like Hitler. He's speaking to the mob, and he's saying what the mob wants to hear. And these people have been trodden upon, stepped upon, beat up for so many years. They're going to accept him as a leader, I fear, and this would be bad for the country. Where are we going now? Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, my friends. I wish you all a good day. Overeat. Enjoy. What can I tell you? Be with your family if you can. If not, be with friends. Sleep a little bit afterwards with a full stomach. Watch a football game, whatever. Thanksgiving is not for real. You're going to hate me probably. But there's an unknown Thanksgiving story, and I want to tell you how Thanksgiving came to be. You know, we hear this flowers thing, flowers and music and all the good things in life. The Pilgrims came over on the Mayflower, you know, and they had a struggle through the first winter, but then the Indians helped them taught them how to raise corn and do other things and survive. So they had this big party in the fall. 150 people were there, and they didn't eat turkey, my friends. They ate deer and everything else. They ate a lot of stuff. They had pumpkin pies. The only trouble was, and here's the trouble. Let me go from fallacy to fact. The Mayflower only delivered 18 women to the new land. 14 of them died during the winter because they were left in the boat. They were left on the Mayflower. They were left on the Mayflower because it was freezing cold, and it was dirty, and there was a lot of germs, and 14 of the 18 women died of pneumonia. Their husbands survived. They were on the land. They were cold, but they were building a settlement, and they didn't get sick from all these germs. So at the end of the winter, there was a grand total of 23 pilgrims left, 19 men and 4 women. They tell us the first Thanksgiving was 150 people, 150 people. I don't know where the hell they got all those when they only had 23 pilgrims. There were 90 Indians, the Wanapog tribe, the chief, and 90 Indians. The women did the cooking. Well, that would mean the women. 4 women did the cooking for everybody. 3 days this party lasted. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure the Indian women helped. You know what the men did? Typical men. They played a game similar to soccer. They took a deerskin ball, they made a ball out of deerskin, and stuffed it with deer hair and kicked it around and played. Well, now comes Lincoln. We're in the middle of the Civil War. And, you know, the North and South are opposed, and he's trying to bring the nation together. So he said, let's have a Thanksgiving. And he fabricated. He made up the story, that they got together and they had this big dinner, the Indians and the Pilgrims, and everything was kumbaya. Because what really happened, now this gets disgusting, actually for the next 15, 16 years following the first Thanksgiving, quote unquote, in 1621. The Pilgrims massacred the Indians big time, okay? The worst massacre came in 1637 near what is now Groton, Connecticut. It's called the Pico Massacre. The Indians came to party with them, all right? And they slept with the settlers. 700 men, women, and children, Indians, 700. They got together for this Thanksgiving party. When they woke up in the morning, the English and Dutch settlers shot and clubbed all 700 to death, okay? Well, this was a victory because the colonists attacked them. They killed them, so they had a party. After they killed 700, the colonists had a party to celebrate, and they called it a Thanksgiving. And then, this is what's great, they started attacking the village after village. And every time they went to a village and they destroyed the Indians, they massacred them, they had another dinner, a Thanksgiving dinner they would call it. And they were having a lot of these. And do you know, they even got into slavery. They were taking boats that held 500 people and taking women and children over 14 and shipping them back to England. Stamford, Connecticut. Now, this is horrible what I'm going to tell you. In the Stamford, Connecticut area, they beheaded a whole tribe of people. We talk about ISIS beheading people. These were the colonists, the earliest Americans. They beheaded the Indians and played games. They kicked their heads down the streets like soccer balls. Again, they had a Thanksgiving dinner after every massacre. And this went on till George Washington was president. We're talking over 100 years now, better than 100 years. And George Washington said, enough of this. This is terrible. You go out and kill a bunch of people. They're Indians, but they're people. And then you have a Thanksgiving dinner. And Washington said, no more Thanksgiving dinners, parties after every massacre. We're going to have one Thanksgiving a year. He didn't specify what it was for, but he says, I'm giving you guys one Thanksgiving a year. And that was it. And that's the story that we don't know about Thanksgiving, but I'm glad it's the way it is today because I enjoy today's Thanksgiving. I don't think I would have been happy in yesteryears. How are we doing on time here? Well, we're getting close to the end here. Let me say this. I want to talk about drug companies for a minute, pharmaceutical companies. They screw the American public. There is a federal agency, the Project on Government Oversight. This past year, they found misconduct on the part of 10 major corporations. 4 of the 10 were pharmaceutical houses: GlaxoSmithKline, Merck, McKesson, Schenning, Plow. They fined them a total of $27 billion. Terrific. They should, because they're screwing the American public. However, I want to know where the money went. Because we know the Social Security money the government takes and puts in the general fund. I told you last week that the fund that takes in money for crime victims, that the government takes to balance the budget. I wonder what the hell they do with this $27 billion. Well, that's the show for tonight, my friends. Hope you have enjoyed. Join me next week. I look forward to being with you again. This show is archived. You can listen to it on Black Talk Radio and YouTube. Most of you do, as I know. And it will be linked tomorrow morning to my Key West Lou website. I wrote a book, The World Upside Down. If you like my show, buy the book. You like the book. If you don't like the show, don't buy the book. Again, I wish you all a merry and happy Thanksgiving and look forward to being with you again next week.